Greetings, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Alejandro Figueroa. I am the Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs Director for Yuma County in the state of Arizona. And on behalf of Forefront ED, the Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, the Greater Yuma Port Authority, as well as the Organismo Promotor de Desarrollo Económico de San Luis Rio Colorado, I would like to welcome you to the fourth episode of the third Binational Trade webinar series with a special focus on infrastructure. I would encourage you to submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box during or after today's presentation. Today's episode, titled Water Resources for the City of Yuma, will be presented by Mr. Jeremy McCall. Jeremy currently serves the City of Yuma as a Utilities Director. He oversees a comprehensive water and wastewater utility system that reaches over 100,000 customers. He has more than 20 years of experience in the utility industry, more specifically in water and wastewater treatment, and hazardous waste management. Jeremy is a certified public manager and holds a Bachelor of Science in Geology from Northern Arizona University and a certificate in agribusiness and water from the Morrison School of Agribusiness at Arizona State University. Jeremy, we're excited to have you join us. The floor is all yours now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Forefront Ed, for the opportunity to come out and speak on water resources. So something that's experienced in and very excited to present to the group. So I would like to talk to you guys about the City of Yuma water resources, our infrastructure, and the future of water management, how we see the water transitioning over the year in the future. So starting with the water treatment infrastructure for the City of Yuma. The City of Yuma is a comprehensive water treatment plant, wastewater plant, and all the systems that go along with that. So we have everything water, wastewater, from Colorado River water management to discharges back into the Colorado River. We do the billing, customer service side as well. So starting with our water treatment infrastructure, one of the oldest treatment plants that we have for the city, and one of the oldest ones on the West Coast, is the Main Street Water Treatment Facility. The site is actually part of the Arizona Historical Register for historic sites, dating back to Blaisdell times to kind of pioneer water treatment, some of the flocculation techniques that are used today. So the Main Street Water Treatment Plant has a rating of 40 million gallons a day. It currently does about half of that, a little less than half of that is what their production is. It's an older site, so it uses conventional sedimentation, which is chemicals that causes the material to flocculate and settle out, create clear water. That clear water goes over to some sand filters before it's disinfected and with chlorine and put into the distribution system. Our newest treatment facility is the AGUA VIVA water treatment facility, AGUA VIVA treatment plant. It was built in 2009. And it's actually two treatment facilities on one site. There's a groundwater, which is wells, groundwater wells, and there's a surface water, which we use Colorado River water there as well. So the surface water plant's about 20 million gallons a day rated, and this groundwater site's rated at 9 million gallons a day. The surface water plant is a membrane filtration plant. The best way I could describe it to someone is envision a straw. The straw is a hollow tube filament that has a porosity size of 500 microns. We put a small vacuum on that, and the water goes from outside the straw to the inside the straw. Doing that filters the water, and that's how we treat the water at AGUA VIVA surface water plant. Very clean, down to 500 microns. The groundwater site, groundwater is naturally pure by nature, but there is some sediment in there we want to remove, and that's iron and manganese. We don't want that in there. If we chlorinate the water with that material in there, there's a potential of that coming out in a distribution system. So we use iron and manganese removal for the groundwater site. The AGUA VIVA plant was Project of the Year for the state of Arizona in 2009 when it was built. One of the reasons for that is its size. The technology is pretty impressive. If you can see the picture in the lower right, all that stainless steel, that's the surface water plant. Inside some of those concrete structures, behind there's where we house the membrane filters. But going back to, we do our own chlorine generation on site, which we actually use salt, a little bit of electricity through a process of electrolysis, and we make bleach there. And the bleach is the chlorine disinfection that we use before it goes into the distribution system. From the water treatment plants, the water goes into storage. So we have multiple storage sites around town. And one of the most obvious ones is by the Interstate 8 and 16th Street. We call it our 16th Street booster pump station. On that site, we have 3 storage tanks. Each one is 3 million gallons. So in total, we have 9 million gallons in storage at that site. Water is pumped there from Main Street, stored on site on demand. So when demand calls for it, maintains pressure in the system, and it goes out to our customers. We have the capability of pushing out 10 million gallons a day at that site. We have 2 storage tanks at AGUA VIVA. Each one is a 2.5 million gallon. So in total, they are 5 million gallons. The surface water plant and the well water plant contributes to each one of these sites. It's in storage, and as demand calls for it, it also goes out into the distribution system. One of the most iconic ones, one of the most iconic treatment storage towers the city has is called Friendship Tower. Very known in the community. It's used for some of the festivals throughout the year. 4th of July, we hang a flag on top of it. And during Christmas, we use it as a Christmas tree lighting ceremony from the Carweos area, Yuma. So what makes this one unique is it's an elevated tank where the water is stored at elevation. And the water is flown out of there just through due course of pressure. And on that site, there's 1.5 million gallons stored on that site. So from storage, it goes into all the distribution piping to our customers. So the city of Yuma maintains, again, all this infrastructure. There's about 550 miles of pipe in the ground. There's about 17,000 water valves and various pipe sizes ranging from small all the way up to 48 inches, which is about 4 feet or so. We have close to 4,000 fire hydrants. Each one of them is uniquely identified, has a serial number, and is managed through a GPS system. So when the fire department has an issue, they need to respond on site, they know the status of that hydrant, whether it's active, inactive, when's the last time it's been serviced. So, but the utilities department does all that maintenance on the hydrants. And of course, we respond to all the emergency after hours complaints, issues with leaks along the way. The water finally ends up into the water meters. We have close to 33,000 water meters. That ranges from residential, commercial, industrial, and the majority of our water meters for the city of Yuma is residential. Over 50% of our customers residential, and close to 45% is commercial, leaving about 5% for the industrial water meters. I do list a small section there as a roving meter. That's our construction activities or unique one-offs where industry may need to move around a meter. So they're local roving meters, and we do that on a monthly basis. We'll check it out to a user. They use it at will, and they bring it back into us to service and read and bill them. All the fixed asset meters that we have deployed, the 33,000, is what we call an AMR system, which stands for automatic meter reading. So no longer do we have to go on site, flip up a register, look at a dial with a pencil, write down the quantity used, the consumption. We actually drive by with a computer, and within a geographic area, such as a neighborhood, a city block, we can pick up all those water meter readings monthly, put it into our system, and get it back to customer service for billing. There's a lot more data in there. And so if we have issues with water complaints, we can actually dive into the data, and it keeps information about water consumption. And we can tell you exactly when water consumption starts and stops through the technology in AMR. That's where our customer service crews come in. So they're the team that comes out and they do the interface with the public. They do our turn-ons and turn-offs. If there's issues with non-payments, they'll come out and talk to the customers about that the water is going off. We'll hang notifications that the water served turned off, how that can get turned back on. being the front line for the department and for the city. Trying to resolve those high bill complaints if they have them, and provide information to the customers about when that can, the water consumption may be started or stopped, such as a sprinkler system coming on overnight, or maybe a toilet not working. So switching gears now to wastewater infrastructure. So all the wastewater lines leading back to the treatment plants, we have about 370 miles of sewer line, close to 6,000 manholes. This crew does televised inspections of all those lines through environmental rules. That's the pictures you see in the lower right-hand picture. One's inside of the slide. One's inside of a sewer line going down with a small camera. We inspect linear feet, and the operators on the right-hand side of that, we see what he sees from his computer screen. He notes any breaks in the line, the condition of the line, the size of the line, the type of line, such as clay, PVC, concrete. So we typically do over 100 miles of pipe inspection a year as well. And of course, they do emergency response and issues what we call sanitary sewer overflows, which are environmentally regulated occurrences of release of wastewater. So from the gravity lines, the wastewater is not a pressurized system, so it flows into what we call lift stations. So being gravity is it flows downhill to a point that becomes too deep, kind of dangerous to manage. So we lift it back up, still underground, but maybe just a couple feet below the surface. Then we let that gravity flow again to a deeper elevation, such as 33 feet or so. We have 25 of these lift stations around town. They're located within neighborhoods, sometimes geographic locations, like in front of the Marine base. We call that one the 36th Street lift station. Rather large, kind of does a majority of the share. And they all lead back to the wastewater treatment facilities. Each one of them has signage. So if there was sometimes an audible alarm will go off and indicate there might be a problem at that site. So if any of our publics out there, they can relay that back to our customer service team. Hey, there's a problem with, in this case, lift station 8. And our guys who are on call 24 hours a day would go out and respond and see what exactly the issue with the lift station is. So as the wastewater goes through the lift stations from the pipes, it all ends up at a treatment facility. The city of Yuma runs 2 treatment facilities, Figueroa and Desert Dunes. The oldest and largest is the Figueroa Avenue Water Pollution Control Facility. Its current design was conceptualized in 1968. It predates the Clean Water Act, which came in 1972. But even before 1968, it was a primary treatment facility, which means for the area, it kind of removed some of the largest stuff in wastewater and discharged it to the river. So when the Clean Water Act came in, it really required specific requirements of water quality. And that's what the plant was designed to do. It was designed as a 12 million gallon a day plant. It's currently treating about 8 million gallons a day. It's a conventional activated sludge, which means it does secondary treatment, and it uses an aeration basin process. Of note is the water that's treated by the Figueroa facility is discharged to the Colorado River, and that's very important to us, and I can talk about that in a little bit. The second treatment facility that the city of Yuma operates is the Desert Dunes facility. It's our newer one. It was built in 2005. It's located about 40th Street and 6E. It was built on what we call the Mesa. And the reason we chose that site is predominantly where we anticipate the growth to occur in 2005. And sure enough, it has grown exponentially out there in the last several years. The site in 2005, being newer technology, being 2005, it's a conventional activated sludge plant. It does extended aeration basin. It also removes nitrogen and ammonia to a better degree than the Figueroa facility. The site doesn't use hardly any chemicals. Actually, I would go out and say it doesn't use any chemicals for treatment. It's all through manual processes, and the disinfection that occurs there is through UV lamps. So it sterilizes any microorganisms and kills them before discharge to percolation ponds. And those percolation ponds are connected to the aquifer. We have support departments, support divisions for the department. We run our own environmental laboratory. We have about 5 people who work in our laboratory. It does our in-house compliance testing, predominantly for our solids. We run about 6,000 tests a year. It's a state certified laboratory and very active. We don't do all of our compliance sampling there. Some of the more exotic parameters that we may have are shipped out to contracted labs in the Phoenix area, but we do the majority of our sampling and analysis in-house. We have a pretreatment section, and this is related to the wastewater side of our operations. What they ensure is that there's not impact to our treatment facilities from commercial discharges into the sewer system. The photos there on the screen are from Yuma. If you're familiar with the cogen facility on the right, that's where they do power generation on First Avenue. The manhole on the left, I'll tell you this, is not related to cogen, but it was another circumstance our pretreatment division came across about 15 years ago. And what this industrial user did, who's no longer in operation, they discharged cyanide to the wastewater system. So that blue color you see there is a Prussian blue. It's actually cyanide plated on the side of the manhole. We had to bring in a remediation company and remove that material at the cost of about $14,000. We passed that cost back to the industrial user and so that it wasn't relayed back to our customers. So in total, we have about 23 of these highly more managed industrial facilities around town, and our commercial pretreatment division manages those each individually. We have a backflow section, the city of Yuma does. So what we try to do, and it's required by law, that once we treat water and we sell water through a water meter, that water does not come back into the distribution system and contaminate the water that's there. So it's a one-way valve. Once it goes onto the customer property, that water stays on the customer property. There's a variety of situations where water could backflow. It's all predicated on pressure differentials, which happens all the time. So we have these devices, we have about 4,000 of them out there that make sure that water goes onto a commercial or industrial site, it stays on the industrial site. So the picture on the lower right, there's actually 3 backflow preventers. There's 2 in the cage and a larger one that's standing behind it. One thing I like to note that even though we have 4,000 of them, residential meters, houses are exempt from the backflow rules. So you don't see those on houses. You do see some in the construction code. So you'll have these atmospheric vacuum breakers, AVBs, put on hose bibs of houses, but they're not testable or regulated devices that the city of Yuma is involved in. We do public outreach throughout the year. So we're active in water conservation. We provide materials to different organizations around town. You can see one of the pamphlets we have there on the right. It's about desert landscaping. We do a water festival with 4th grade children through all the school districts in town. We bring them into the Colorado River Depot, former quartermaster park, and have a fun day in November. COVID's kind of complicated that, but the teachers still are covering the material with the students in class at this point. The Consumer Confidence Report is our annual water quality report. We produce that every year. And the FOG program is, FOG stands for fats, oils, and grease. It's an outreach program that we try to engage in with some of our fats, oils, grease producers to make sure that material doesn't end up in the sewer system. The last 2 items you can find on our website, more about Water Week. We celebrate in-house, and the water video is a very fun and interesting video that we produce that asks questions of the public, and they give their answers and maybe how far off they are from the true answer, the true response, such as where does your water go when it leaves when it goes down the drain, and whatnot. So that's our outreach. We are governed, we're guided by a water and sewer commission. City council is the one that governs the city of Yuma's decision-making process, but they're advised by a sewer commission, water and sewer commission. It's a 7-person board. We have 6 individuals on the board right now. They meet the first of the month. Their charter is to advise the department on water and sewer rates or activities that may influence those rates. If anybody is interested, there's a seat available. You can contact me or the city clerk, and you can do some participate with your opinion. I'd like to kind of change gears now and go from the infrastructure and the city's assets to more of the water management provisions the city engages in. So just bringing everybody up to speed is, I'd like to share that, water laws vary by jurisdiction. The water laws in Arizona are not the same ones that are in California or Nevada or Mexico. The water laws in Arizona are not the same water laws in Yuma that they may be in Phoenix or Tucson. And that's because Phoenix and Tucson lie in more managed areas. They call them active management areas, AMAs. The water outside the AMAs in Arizona is regulated by either surface water rules or groundwater rules. Inside the AMAs, going back to Phoenix, Tucson, Prescott, Nogales, Pinal County, the groundwater and the surface water is regulated as one. Those AMAs, typically watershed areas, are managed by a board appointed by the governor, and they manage the ins and outs of all the water into the watershed. Yuma is not inside that watershed, just for point. None of Yuma County is. So Yuma, city of Yuma uses Colorado River water predominantly for its source. We do use some groundwater, but predominantly we use surface water, and that comes from the Colorado River. The Colorado River users is based into two factions, the upper basin and lower basin. That means the states from Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico are upper basin states. The lower basin states are Arizona, California, and Nevada. The lower basin states has their allocation of 7.5 million acre feet. And Mexico has 1.5 million acre feet allocation. One of the big concerns, and then what everybody's been talking about lately, is water shortages, drought, and how that impacts Arizona, how it impacts the city, how it impacts everybody. So I just wanted to show you on the screen that those decisions, how the impacts come in, were made from a 2007 rule called the Interim Guidelines and the Drought Contingency Plan, DCP. And what I have on the screen there is elevations. That is elevations of Lake Mead. Lake Mead, Hoover Dam, is managed for lower river states. As the elevation for the lake gets lower, shortages occur. So I put some of the more critical elevations in there. So for instance, the elevation 1075, which we're currently is being imposed, which is called a tier 1 shortage. Arizona takes 512,000 less acre feet out of Lake Mead. California none, Nevada 21,000, and Mexico 80,000 acre feet. As the lake continues to lower, it will go down 25 feet, and you can see that Arizona has 592,000 less acre feet, and so on and so forth. So the last elevation on there, I can't really see it on my screen, but you can see California actually comes in on that elevation, and it's 200,000 acre feet is the California shortage. This is all designed to make sure that there's diminishing demand on the Colorado River, and that the river can fulfill its primary and priority contracts. Contracts for the Colorado River have been issued since 1912, I think, and 1895. I know the city of Yuma has one from 1918, some of that time frame, that it's called Priority 1 water. In Arizona, the water is allocated through priorities 1 through 6. Priority 1, 2, and 3 have high priority water. Priorities 4, 5, and 6 have lower priority water. 4, 5, and 6 water are the ones who are subject to the shortages on the screen. Individuals who have 1, 2, or 3 water, they're not subject to the shortages. City of Yuma has priority 1 and priority 3 water. So we're not subject to the drought contingency plan or the interim guidelines. So moving on to the next bullet is about water, converted water. Water management for Yuma. We take advantage of a relationship we have with the Yuma County Water Users Association. Yuma County water users and the city of Yuma jurisdictions overlap. So in that area where we overlap, if development occurs and farmland is converted to residents or developed, the city of Yuma will pay the water assessments, but we also get the water allocated to those parcels, to that acreage. So we bolster our water portfolio by paying the tax assessments for the converted water within the water user, Yuma County Water Users District. The last thing is a consumptive use contract. And the consumptive use contract goes back to the discharges from the wastewater plant to the Colorado River. It's a very unique situation. We have a contract with the Bureau of Reclamation, who are the owners and operators of the Colorado River and its infrastructure. So the city of Yuma has this contract that's very unique. It says that you can take 50,000 acre feet, but if you discharge 50,000 acre feet, your net consumption is 0. So what we do with our water is we make sure we account for the water that goes into the Colorado River, and we note what our offsets are, what we call return flow credits. So it's a consumptive use permit contract, and we get return flow credits. So it's another way of us bolstering our water portfolio for the city of Yuma. So my last slide, I just kind of want to share what the future of the water industry is that it's kind of going to my opinion, if you will. I'm stepping out on a branch a little bit, but there's water security is going to be a problem for everybody in the West. The west of the Rockies, the West Coast, any area that is arid, including Mexico. But I'd like to point out that there is no shortage of water. What the shortage of water is cheap water, free water, water that's in the river. That's already going to be allocated. It's already going to be used. There's already people in line. So we're going to have to look at using alternative sources or treating what water is available to us to a better standard. So we can desalinate water. We can put through water through RO systems, and we can make that drinkable, but it becomes very expensive. But that's going to be one of those paradigm shifts that we face in the West Coast about how much we're willing to pay for water. It's not something that it's unforeseen. It's something that's doable. 20 years ago, you would gawk at paying so much for a cellular phone bill, but now people pay a lot for their cell bill, right? It's just what they're willing to accept. But there is no shortage of water. The earth is made up of 2/3 of water. So the water-hungry coastal communities, once it becomes to a point that there's enough demand, those facilities can put in RO systems and treat water for their customers. It's just going to be an expensive water bill. So that's what I kind of leave you with, that there's going to be a higher degree upon technology as we move into the future for water security. So with that, guys, that's the end of my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. This is fascinating. Thank you for sharing this very valuable information on water infrastructure and management. Water is now and should continue to be valued as a vital asset to our continued development in the region. If anybody has any questions, this is the time to type them in. Feel free to ask away. We do have a question from Councilman from the City of Yuma, Mr. Gary Knight. He's asking, Jeremy, how often do the meters need to be calibrated?
So the water meters have a life of 10 years. So the AMR meters have a lithium ion battery in there that's guaranteed for 10 years from the manufacturer. The calibration, they guarantee that. So the calibration is good as long as the warranty from the manufacturer for the battery is. We typically try to replace it out about every 7 years or so. We'll go out and just through due course of our meter replacements. We don't have to replace the electronics. That's a separate device than the physical meter nowadays. They come apart. But at any time, if there's any question about a meter's accuracy, we have a division that tests meters in-house. It's actually a test bench. So at no cost, we'll pull out a meter, we'll put in a meter, we'll run a test for that customer, and we can tell them how much it deviates. So we'll run a known quantity through, and we'll say we can tell the customer how far it's off. Typically, water meters are designed to fail. If there is any failure in a water meter, typically fails in the customer's favor. So what happens is the tolerances get less, and that allows more water to get through. So our meters rarely, if ever, add water to a customer's bill. Actually, they miss that. So what we see is when we put a new meter in because a customer is concerned about the accuracy of a meter, that they're actually getting more water than they expected. And the new meter is going to capture that water, and we actually charge them more, unfortunately, right? If they were concerned about that. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Jeremy. Another question I have is, how has the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, affected water supply in the city of Yuma? Or maybe it hasn't.
So the pandemic has affected everybody, and it's affected our business as well. The water supply has not been affected, but our operations has, right? So we've seen a lot of variability in what our historical data, where we keep analytics on almost every aspect of our business. And one thing that we saw is a lot of sporadic data. As stay-at-home orders were issued, we saw wastewater and water consumption go up a lot. So when kids are at school and they're going through what we used to consider normal norms of business, going to work, going to school, people use less water. When they stay at home, they use more water. So we were producing more water during the pandemic. As those people were going back to the milestones of August, it's time to go back to school, we would see our numbers go down rather than staying at home. Some people, just through no fault of their own, they had some social and financial pressure. So the city of Yuma responded by making a lot of money available to individuals who could not meet their demands on their water accounts. So we put a moratorium on any disconnection. So we did not disconnect anybody for non-payment throughout the pandemic. Just recently, we started our disconnections in September of this year. So just a month or so ago, we actually started resuming water disconnections. And that was to allow everybody to get up to speed, get back to work. We offered a lot of money through WACOG, the Western Area of Governments, that needed assistance. If anybody ever had any problems with their utility bill or assistance, they were encouraged to talk to our customer service team and find those routes for support. So there was a lot in the community, inside the city. The city supported, even the county had money available through Renters Assistance Program. And we saw, I think the data I saw, we saw 13 people take advantage of that. So just a lot of different aspects, how the pandemic affected us. But as far as operations, we're able to make it through the pandemic just fine. All water quality was maintained. The supplies were not disrupted. More what we had to see addressed was put a moratorium on disconnections and let people get through the pandemic into more of a normal state of affairs.
Thank you. Another question, Jeremy. From an economic development perspective, could we guarantee, or for how long could we guarantee businesses currently within the city of Yuma, or those who are considering to move and expand to the city of Yuma, how long can we guarantee, or we can say there's enough water supply at this rate, at this current rate?
It's a great question. And so we talk to the Bureau of Reclamation and the Department of Water Resources annually. In the Department of Water Resources, we have what we call a determination of adequate water supply. And we have enough water on hand to fulfill all of our obligations and moving into the future. We have 50,000 acre feet of water that's provided to us from a contract from I know it's before 1968, but I believe it's the 1930s from the Bureau of Reclamation, 1958. My point is, it's an older contract. It's priority 3 water, so it's not subject to drought management plan or any of the restrictions that we might hear about on the news. Our current demand is around 23,000 acre feet. So we can grow to the double the size we're at now, and that's not including the return flow credits, and it's not considering the converted water in the irrigation district, Yuma County Water Utilization District. So we can grow substantially larger. I do also believe as we move into the future, in the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years down the road, that water conservation is going to be more important to us. So that will extend the life and the resources of the city of Yuma. The one thing that we're having issues with for as economic development is that on the wastewater side, our margins are becoming a lot closer, and specifically on the Desert Dunes wastewater treatment facility. It's a 3 million gallon day plant. It is receiving 2 million gallons a day currently. So that only gives us about 1 million gallons a day of capacity. That capacity has already been provided to development on paper. So we've already allocated on that paper. So we're in the need of actually physically providing capacity to new users, and we're undertaking an expansion project for that. So we plan on expanding, doubling the size of Desert Dunes, going from a 3.3 facility to a 6.6 million gallon day facility. And that should start off this spring is the plan.
That's great to know. That's great to know. Jeremy, last question. Is there a binational collaboration effort in terms of water conservation that the city of Yuma is involved with Mexico that you know of?
Yeah, I don't know. The Colorado River is managed by the Bureau of Reclamation, right? And everybody has a consortium of contracts. Those contracts are known as the law of the river. So there's not just one document that guides us. It's a ruling of 26.7 independent judgments that all this together becomes rule of the river. Part of the Bureau of Reclamation's contracts is water conservation and what are we doing to help preserve resources for the future. And I know there's a couple congressional acts that govern the water allocations and prevalence to Mexico, minute 316, minute 323, along those lines, but I'm not sure specifically. And to directly answer your question, I'm not engaged with Mexico on water conservation.
Perfect. Well, so that's some homework we all need to do, right? And I'm sure our partners in Mexico who are on the call today might be able to share that information with us later on. But we're running out of time, so I want to thank you, Jeremy, once again for your time today and your participation on this call. We really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for joining us as well. I would like to invite you to please join us on Wednesday, October the 13th at 4 o'clock for the 5th and final episode of this third webinar series. The title for that episode will be an infrastructure overview of and opportunities for the region by Mr. Marco Martinez. And finally, I would also encourage you to follow the Forefront ED on social media for more details on upcoming projects and events taking place at our binational region. Thank you all and have a great day.